Okay, people. So today, right now, well, firstly, we get a lot of films on here and we get to talk to a lot of people. And one of the people that are behind all of that is today's guest. People, it is Cynthia Amsden. Cynthia, welcome to the podcast and thank you for everything you do for this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
No, it's always been great because, I think it was TIFF when we first started working together. It was a pay for it and the best. I think you hit me up with, and oh man, they were both really, really good. And it's just like, when you get approached with really good stuff and you always supply all the useful information, because sometimes people hit you up but give you nothing, and then you're like, do you have an EPK? Can you give me a bio? Can you give me something? Or you just have to try and find information yourself. But you are always super helpful and you come through with some great stuff. So it's really appreciated.
Well, well, thank you very much. Really, I I've been doing this since about the year 2000, and um, oh, I've been doing this since just before. Oh, I was at TIFF when 9/11 happened, and I remember
Oh.
that. I think that was one of my first years at TIFF as a publicist because I'd been a journalist before that, and
Mm.
uh, yeah, the press in the last 25 years has changed radically, and the important thing that I have found is when you find a good journalist, uh, you treasure them. You're one of them, and um, I remember there's an outlet called Screen Anarchy, and it started off with a guy named Todd Brown who was just one man, and he had Twitch Film, and I remember giving him just a tremendous amount of work, and it Twitch Film turned into Screen Anarchy, and it just you have to treasure good journalists. They're remarkably few and far between, and you're definitely one. So, and the other thing is this: you have to treasure journalists who, afterwards, because I always talk to the actors and the directors and everyone, and
Mm.
they love talking to you. I mean, they seriously love it. So, and the last interview that you did, which was a really really sensitive one,
Mm.
they
Oh,
came,
yeah.
and I'll tell you, the directors were nervous about talking to the press because it was such a delicate subject. You handled it perfectly. They were thrilled. They were comfortable. They were at ease. They were able to talk to you, and and so yeah, I'll give you stuff all the time.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, that last one was because I'm used to talking around sensitive subjects because I've worked for a lot of charities. I've worked for the NHS, so you're used to it. But there's always that, you always thinking, because when you're in the flow of talking, you come like you're just like, do not, just it's so easy to have something just slip out, right? You just touch on something that you're just like, oh, why did I say that? I wasn't meant to say. And so it's just like you're very conscious of not to do that. But it's all about trying to make them comfortable. And I think you could see that as the time went on, they got more and more comfortable. And, what I mean, their answers got more expansive as we went on. And so it was, yeah, really just interesting just hearing them just talk about things, talk about the production and, how they dealt with, having to step back into that, world, you know, dealing with that topic and the trauma attached to it, you know?
The other thing that's interesting about you is that you're the only journalist who I will give this amount of time, because you will take between 60 and 90 minutes to do an interview.
Yeah.
I usually max out with any other journalist at about 20. You're the only one who I will give long interviews to. And the wonderful, this is the hilarious part. I can give you a short film that runs for 7 minutes and you can talk to them for 90. It's wonderful. And I know they've got like tons and tons to say, and you manage to ask all the right questions. It's just, so yeah, you know, until I stop doing this, you're going to be getting stuff from me. So there you go.
Oh,
and the reason you get a lot of material is because I used to be a journalist. And I mean, I started off as an investigative journalist. Here's the short story. My first big story as an investigative journalist was about a 4-time killer who took the HIV-positive blood of his last victim and injected himself with it before he turned himself into the police.
Yo.
And I got him when he had been in prison, federal prison for 5 years. And there was tuberculosis running. This is Kingston Pen in Canada, Ontario. And they had a bout of tuberculosis. Why? And the only people who were at high risk were if you were immunocompromised. And he was, because he was HIV positive. And so his lawyer set me up with an interview with him, and I interviewed him for 6 weeks. And 5 days after our last interview, he hanged himself in his cell. And not because of my interviews, but because there was someone coming into the prison who he was going to kill. And he didn't do that because he had already done it 4 times and he didn't really enjoy it. But and that's how I got my first big story in the paper. And that ended up going into, they ran in the Globe and Mail in Canada, and it ran in a magazine called Prison Life, which the joke is that, you know, when you're denied parole, you get a 12-month subscription to Prison Life. But really, it was just prison guards reading it. That got the attention of Polygram Films, and they had a film called Dead Man Walking with Susan Sarandon. And Polygram wanted me to come down to New York to do this interview with Susan Sarandon.
Nice.
For Prison Life magazine. Okay, so I went from being a regular journalist. I mean, there were a bunch of other stories I did, but I went from being a regular journalist, I got into film. And I did that for a while. And then I was hired by a producer who liked my writing to be it was for Clement Virgo's film Love Come Down, was my very first film as a unit publicist. And they had interviewed me, and then on a Thursday night I got a phone call from them saying, yeah, they decided to hire a real publicist, a real unit publicist for the job. I was flying the next day to Los Angeles to do a junket. So I'm sitting by the pool in LA at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills, and literally as a waiter is handing me a plate of frozen grapes. This is so classic. My phone rings, and they said that the publicist who they wanted to hire for this said that there wasn't enough money. And could I be on set? This was a Friday morning. Could I be on set on Monday? This is like a Kodak moment in my life. Okay, great. So I said, yes, of course. Yes, of course I can be there as I'm taking the grapes. Great. Well, it turned out the amount, this is back in the year 2000. The amount was $5,000 for 4 weeks work. And as a journalist, that's like a lot of money, like a massive amount of money. So of course I did the job, which is tremendously fun. And with my first paycheck, I went out and bought a pair of leather pants because I had the cash, which was great. Anyway, Clement Virgo, I have worked with he and his producer, Damon D'Oliveira. I have been working with them Well, I guess for 25 years now, because
Nice.
they completely changed my life.
Mm.
So they just did Steal Away. Before that, they did the film Brother. I mean, I will travel and have traveled anywhere on the planet for them. But the reason I get you stuff like press notes, photos, everything like that is I remember being a journalist begging, just please send me anything. So yeah, that's why I make sure journalists get with it.
Oh man, that is, man, so crazy. It happened like that from a prison interview.
Yeah.
It all, and was there any trepidation about doing that prison interview?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, that was huge. It was massive. I was terrified.
Mm.
But then it turned out that because I thought, I mean, at the time I was the mother of a young daughter. I mean, she's about to turn 40. That was a while ago. I was quite frightened, and I thought, do I want to be in a room with a 4-time killer?
Yeah.
And then it turned out that the prison wouldn't let me in, so I had to do everything. He had to call me. So for 6 weeks, he was like calling me on the phone. I'd get phone calls because the only way is they can call. The only way you can call out of a Canadian prison is you have to call Colette. And we had the weirdest conversations, and they're all taped. I've got all of. I actually own it. I mean, I sold the story to the Globe and Mail, and twice it's been optioned to turn into a documentary because it was just such a weird story. But one of the things that he was saying, and this is so bizarre, was in prison they were showing that the Woody Harrelson film Natural Born Killers. They showed that in prison.
Oh my God.
Yeah, seriously, but who's curating this? And, of course, I was asked. The guy's name was Terry Fitzsimmons. And I said, "So, what'd you think? What did you think of the film? I mean, you got firsthand experience here." And he goes, "No, it had the buzz. Apparently there's a buzz that you get when you kill someone." He said, and he said that the film got it.
Huh.
Just, okay, there's a review that's we're never gonna pull a blurb and put that on the poster. It was quite weird. The whole thing was quite weird.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'll send you the story that I wrote.
Yeah, definitely do that. But the thing, I think that is such a, I think that's a great example though of, I think it's like challenging yourself and being ready. You know what I mean? Because loads of people want opportunities, but they want the right opportunity, right? Unless it's framed in a certain way, they don't want it, right? And it's just like, you understand that anything could lead somewhere. So if the door is open slightly, just yank that open and go through, because that thing could then lead to something else. And for you, it led you to Susan Sarandon and then, Clement Virgo, which is like, you could never have thought the step would be that to that to that. You know what I mean? But because you know what I mean, put yourself forward, those things came to you.
There's a thing that I've learned from being a unit publicist means that.
Ooh.
Get your phone.
0, 2, 0, 4,
Oh no.
6, 2, 0.
Nah, that's spam. I can see that. That's cool. I've got it on do not disturb, so I don't even know how that came through, but sorry.
These things happen. They really do happen. And when they happen on set, it costs a lot of money because you get nailed at least $50 every time your phone rings on set and blows the take.
Ooh.
It's very funny. And I did have it once. I was on The Expanse and I had a new phone and my phone started going off and it was just, it was right by the monitor. It was terrible. So I'm what's called a unit publicist. I do two things. I do unit, which means I'm part of a film crew, and I do festival stuff and a little bit of release stuff. But because you're doing unit, one of the things that I've learned is you never say no. ever.
Mm.
You say yes and then figure out how the hell to make it work. But
Yeah.
you just say yes. I was beside, there was one time I was working with, it was a made for TV movie with, check this, Shirley MacLaine, Shannon Doherty from 90210, and Parker Posey when she was the indie queen, like years and years before White Lotus. And it was the three of them, and it was a TV movie. I think it was for CBS. It was called Mary Kay, Hell on Heels, and Shirley MacLaine was playing Mary Kay. Anyway, I remember sitting outside. We were shooting this in Winnipeg, in Canada, and I was sitting outside the studio because it was summer. It was hot, and the director rather, was talking to the production designer, and he had an idea, and so he was discussing it with her, and she kept saying, "Oh, we can't do that. We can't." Well, and so he said, "Well, how about this?" And she kept no. And finally, I watched the director have an absolute freaking meltdown, and he said, "Your job is to say yes, and then figure out how. And you have blocked me every single." And he fired her on the spot. And I'm sitting there overhearing this and just quaking.
Mm.
But I learned you never say no. Fascinating stuff.
Oh man. Mm. But I think that's the thing, because when people send me stuff, I just yeah, let's do it. I kind of feel, my thing is, technically there's genres that I don't necessarily gravitate to, right? But every now and again, there's a film from those genres that you go, oh, that's incredible. So you don't know what that's going to be. So just watch everything. You know what I mean? Because it could be great. And even films that aren't necessarily great, there's usually something in it that you're like, oh, that was really good. So there's always something to talk about, you know?
Not only do I know, but having been a journalist and knowing what journalists need, two things happen with me. One, I think I've got over 250 credits now. So I have the luxury of, well, frankly, only taking films that I like.
Yeah.
And my relationship with journalists is that they know that I'm not going to take a film unless I like it.
Mm.
And the only reason I will take something is if I see something in it that a journalist will like. If I can find a story in there, if I can find an angle exactly like what you're talking about, so that there's press that know that if I've got the film, there's something worth watching in it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a critic. I am not a critic. And there are way better critics out there than I would ever be. But you guys need to have something, you need an angle. And it's really quite cool being on set and talking and with the director, with the producers, particularly the producers are the best. I mean, directors are fantastic. I love them to bits. And the actors are sublime and everything. But it's the producers who have like the 30,000 foot view and the 12 view, right? I mean, they're right in there. And they're the best ones to interview. The hardest ones, because everyone wants they want the director, they want the actor. But the producers have all the background information.
Yeah.
And it is just very, very cool stuff. You know, and so that's what I try and make sure is in the press notes. Do you know how I write press notes? It's really funny. Because of what it was like when I was a journalist, I used to sit with journalists who had to do interviews and they had never watched the movie. Which is it's like sacrilege. It's like, But so I write press notes for journalists like you who watch the film or the TV show or whatever it is, and I will embed in the press notes leads for you to follow if you want. Like, here's the background, but here's more stuff to ask about. But if you haven't seen this and you are having to do an interview, there's enough information for you to do a decent interview without actually even seeing the thing, which I disapprove of, but I know it happens. Or the other thing that I will write it at, because it's sort of a layered, the press notes are layered, is if you have to watch the film and write something about it without doing an interview. There's still enough in the press notes.
Yes.
My press notes are long.
But that's good. The more information, the better, right? There can never be too much information, because there's always like nuggets that you can throw in or give you insight into something. Because sometimes you watch and you're going, oh, I wonder what that was about, or that's interesting that they did it there. I wonder, and so sometimes it's in the notes, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's really interesting. You know what I mean? And so you can, throw that into your review, and you're breaking it down.
Yeah.
So that's what. But it's funny because sometimes when I'm talking with people, I'll just be like, oh, but really great film, and they're like, you watched the film? I'm like, yeah, of course I watched the film. And they're like, oh my gosh, you watched the film? That's so great. And it's just like, we wouldn't be talking if I didn't watch the film, man. Like, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Because I just think if you're not watching it, because I used to do stuff in the music industry for a little bit. And so I did a few interviews there. And it's just like, you got to listen to the album, right? You've got to know what the artists do. Because how can you have a really full-blooded conversation if you have no idea what anything is about? You're just going to ask base level, boring questions.
Oh, that there are, because I've had to do a lot of media training. There are, and this is another reason why I like giving you the talent to interview. He said there are 5 basic questions that journalists, the lesser journalists, will ask. And so when I have to do media training, and it happens all the time, it's just insane. Tell me about the movie. Tell me about your character. What were the challenges? And tell me about working with the other actors, and what are you working on next? Those are the 5 questions. And I can train them. And it's just it's what we call in my part of the business, it's the low-hanging fruit. And the other thing is controversy. If there's anything that even smells like controversy, because that'll headline. That'll take an interview hostage. It's really, when I was a journalist, I had a reputation of being a really friendly pit bull. And so now I've sort of turned that to the power of good, and I will help. There was a whole thing way back in the where actors didn't want to answer the question of how old are you. So and they don't get asked that anymore. I mean, it's so strange. There was a time back when I was a journalist where do I tell this story?
Yeah.
No, I can't. No, it's just, no. I can't do it. No, it's like a major trade secret, but someone keeps saying I should write a book, and it's just like, yeah, and if I write that book, I will. So what I thought I would do is I would put this all into a speech and give it to someone else to read at my memorial, where I cannot do. Right? So I thought that would make a great episode for a TV of some show, but
yeah,
they never cover publicists very much.
I think probably the age thing was because I remember just watching certain shows, right? Like Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah.
And then you find out that they're not 18. You know what I mean? They're 30 or like, they're always a lot older than the age they're meant to be in the TV show or the film. And that's probably right. If you say I'm this age, then they can't really get the work playing an 18-year-old because everyone knows.
It's true. I mean, so what happens is that the actors, they have range, right?
Yeah.
Which is they can play 18 to 30, that kind of thing. And it's for instance, the young girl who's playing Wednesday, Jenna Ortega.
Yes.
She's not a kid anymore,
No.
but she's got range, and good makeup artists can do wonders.
Yeah.
God knows they make me look young, right?
Hey, you're not old.
Of course I'm not. No. I'm 140.
Oh dear, oh dear. It's I think it's always, I think the thing with, talking with people, and why I like a long time, because I would always, because I've always loved films, right? Always loved stories. And you would, check, you hear a film's coming out and you'd be like, oh, I wonder what they've got to say about it. And you check interviews out, or you'd read them, and you just heard the same thing over and over again. And it's just like, what's the point in checking this out, right? And it's like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and you're just like, there's nothing you can do in this time. So I always just thought, giving people just plenty of time, firstly, it helps them become comfortable. And then you can really take a deep dive into just everything they've done, the process of bringing this thing to life, and you're able to ask more interesting things than just those base level, boring ass questions.
But the thing that usually happens, for instance, at a festival, is that you get a 15-minute window
Yeah.
because on a press day that they're just cycling through.
Mm.
One of the things for media training is that how do you get actors to answer questions differently? Because the question is going to be the same, so you've got to find different answers. And it was Jeff Goldblum who said 100 years ago that you have to do 75 interviews in a day, especially if you're doing TV, because those are 7-minute interviews, and you have to make every answer sound like it's the first time you've ever answered that question, which is partly acting. But partly is you actually have to understand that there's something different there. I think when I was a unit, I was hired as assistant unit publicist. Oh God. There was a movie that was done a long time ago called Flowers for Algernon, and Neil Marin, Craig Zaden, who did Chicago, had done a remake of this. I think they called it Charlie. And it had Matthew Modine in it. And so I'm on set as an assistant unit publicist. And he was doing interviews. So they said I had to go and audit these interviews. And so I listened to him deliver his answers to the interview. And then he came back and he had lunch, because this was all being done over lunch. And I was stunned because it was one of the first times, remember, I'd only been a journalist. So I'd only ever seen the interview persona of actors. And on this particular day, I saw Matthew Modine do this. I think it was Matthew Modine. Anyway, I saw him do the interview and then come back and be himself. And I realized, oh my God, all these times I thought I was really I was having a genuine conversation.
Yeah.
And what I was getting was a performance. And that's when I thought, oh, okay, all right. As a journalist, I remember I'd only been given short interviews. Like as a journalist, it was 2010, that kind of thing. And so you have to get in there and dig to get something that's more legit. And the only way you can do that is to offset them with different questions. And that causes an individual to think, and then you get a more genuine response.
Yes. Yeah. Because at the London Film Festival, they do They call them afternoon teas. And you just go to a hotel and there's a big room, loads of tables, and all the talent are on separate tables. And then you just go around the tables, right, of all the people you want to talk to, and they let you talk to.
Okay.
And but it's noisy as hell, right? Which isn't, I think all the other people are doing written interviews, but I'm doing the podcast, so I'm having to tape it, and it's noisy and it's but luckily every time I've done it, the next person hasn't turned up, so I've managed to get longer with the person. And I think it's because, I've watched the film and I'm always intrigued. So I come at them with different questions. And you can see they're kind of relieved that it's just like, oh, I haven't had this one. Yeah, okay. And then they get into it, and you can have a decent conversation, but it's still only 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes. And it's like, it's just frustrating because you're just like, there's more, like we were really getting into it, and there's like more you want to talk about, but it's just like, gotta go.
There is one question that sometimes gets asked. Well, wait. There's You know what listicles are? Oh, you know
Mm.
all that stuff that you see, the 10 best, the
Oh,
five,
yes.
those, and it drives journalists crazy because they have to write that are called listicles, which is
Mm.
like the 10 best, the 5 best, the
Right.
7 best, everything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
You're not actually writing, you're just listing things. So
Mm.
that's going on a lot. And then the other one that I've actually stopped people from, I've told them in advance, do not ask this question, don't have to do this with you. Describe your film in 3 words.
Oh.
You say, like, okay, that's never happening again for me.
Mm.
Not on my watch. Because that's like social media stuff, which is,
Yeah.
and social media is fine. I don't have a problem with it. But you can't ask it. What the one question that actors, everyone hates the most, which is, tell me what your movie's about.
Oh.
And the reason is that they get the script, and then they have to pull the thing apart, whether it's if it's costumes, they have to pull it apart for costumes or lighting or sound or whatever the
Mm.
specialty is, or acting, and they have to pull it apart, and then they have to put it all back together in a way so that they can deliver this. And they are not thinking about what the whole thing is about. They're
Mm.
thinking about the moments and the beats and everything.
Yeah.
And they all get they all hate the question, what is this about? Because it's a really difficult question after you have dissected this thing to within an inch of its life, every performance, every beat, and everything. It's crazy. And then they have to, so I always have to work with it. It's just tell me what to say. Okay, fine, I will tell you. But it is actually a very difficult question. And uh, the way to get past, throw them questions that are like wildly oblique, coming at like from the side where they
Mm.
aren't expecting it. If you throw them questions like that, they do have to start, and then you'll start getting answers like you do, which are fresh and thoughtful and but it's tough doing interviews.
Oh, I think because I've come from a comms marketing background, and then I've worked, like, the first few things I did actually. So I was an entertainment writer for this media website. It doesn't exist anymore, but I would have to write their entertainment news section. So, and because it was in the States, right? So I'm up all night, there's a time difference, looking for stories and interesting things that, and also it's looking for things that aren't necessarily everywhere else, right? Because I'm just like, I don't want to duplicate something because it's all over the place. So what's the point? You know what I mean? Like the thing why you want to bring people here is because you're getting interesting different things, or you're coming at a different angle. So it was looking for things in that way, right? So I did that, and then I was a writer for a comic book website, the comic book bit. And so I would review comic books, and I would interview artists and writers and things like that. So that's what I did there. But at work, I'm writing press releases, I'm prepping like CEOs for media engagements and things such as that. So you're always thinking about ways into something, right? The best approach, something different, because it's just like, okay, what's everyone else doing? How can we make this interesting, right? How can I grab people's attention with this? Like, what can I do? Because I think you want I always think, right? I'm talking to someone, but it could be at the end of the day for them, and they've already done like 20 other interviews. So they're going to be tired, jaded. They've heard the same thing over. So it's just like, how can I make this fun for them? Right? How can I keep them engaged? So it's always that thing. I'm always thinking about that. So then that kind of gives me a way into the conversation, right? The way to kind of frame it and do it, because it's just like, I know what interests me. I know when I've read things, I'm just like, this is terrible, I'm out. Or I sometimes I listen to other, interviews, and it's just like, oh, this is so terrible. So it's just like, I'm always thinking, and it's just like, after having a conversation, you're just like, okay, how did I do with this one? Like, I'm not sure I was on my get. It's like, how can I improve? How can I, what I mean? So you're watching things. Every time you're watching things, you're thinking about, oh, that was done really well. Oh, that's a great scene. Oh, those lines were good. So be like, I need to talk about this. It'd be good to talk about this, because that's like, how the hell did they even do that? So it's always just thinking.
Okay, let me does your audience, are they interested in what goes on set?
I mean, probably. I mean, I would be.
Okay.
So,
All right. Here's this, because this was all new to me, and you may already know this. So if you already know this, then I'm being boring, and tell me, and I'll stop. One of the things that I learned was that on comedies, sometimes it's very funny. Sometimes if you've got Jay Baruchel on anything, if you've been interviewing Jay Baruchel on anything, he will go out of his way just to break people up. I mean, I worked on, it was called The Art of the Steal, and it had, oh my God, which had absolutely everyone in it. Matt Dillon. Look it up. I'm having a moment. I'm forgetting. There was a scene where Jay Baruchel was crossing the border between Canada and the U.S. It had Kurt Russell in it. I mean, it really was a total boys' film, and it's a very funny film. But there's a scene where Baruchel is at the border, and he starts ad-libbing. And he's got the lines, but he's ad-libbing, and every single take was insane. So if you've got anyone that does improv, find out if they were starting to goof around on set. If you do any interview with anything that Jay Baruchel is in, ask about the ad-libbing scenes, because he will do it. He can't help himself, and he is beyond hilarious. I mean, we were dying, because the thing is, he's doing this, we're listening to this, it's in the middle of a take, and nobody can make the sound. So you have all these people having aneurysms, trying not to make any sound because they are dying of laughter. The other thing is that on really, really serious shows, sometimes you figure it's going to be terribly serious on set. Well, one of the ways that they, and you can ask about this, one of the ways, many years ago, many years ago, I worked on a limited series, CBS, shot in the Czech Republic called Hitler, The Rise of Evil. Had Robert Carlyle and, Peter O'Toole. I got to work with Peter O'Toole. My God, it was one of his last films. It was just nuts. I was alone in the trailer with this man and dying. I mean, he carried a silk handkerchief in his pocket every single time he performed because it was good luck. Anyway, this man, even at I guess he was 87, late 70s, still breathtakingly beautiful. And so we have Schreiber and Julianne Margulies, and I just had Peter Stormare. I mean, everyone in it. But it's a mini series about Hitler, for God's sake. And the props guy, who was from France, because the whole crew was from various countries across Europe. The props guy had a rubber chicken. And the rubber chicken used to appear off camera in scenes. They'd get into a limo and off camera, the rubber chicken would be there. And there's a whole scene. The rubber chicken would fall from the ceiling. I mean, it was just. So when you've got really, really serious stuff, ask them if there was anything they were doing. You would not expect it. And on comedies, the ones that Jay Baruchel is not in, they're often pretty serious. Comedians they're not always funny.
Oh yeah,
they really.
I think that's the thing. Because people just think because an actor is in a comedy that they're always hilarious, and sometimes you see them do a stand-up thing and it's terrible, and it's just like, yeah, because they're not a comedian.
Yeah,
they're an actor reading comedic lines. There's a difference.
Yeah,
But
what goes on set is often not what people think. The other thing is that and I was really surprised about this. And you get this on TV when you come back and you're doing like one season after the next, is that some actors have a really tough time letting go of their characters, and they carry them with them for sometimes a very long time after.
Yeah.
Which, if you're getting a film at a festival, it will be, maybe a year since they've played that character. Find out from them how long that character stayed with them and why. Because sometimes the character will hook onto an actor and not let go. And it's really interesting. My background's in psychology. So, okay. All right. Fine. Full disclosure, it was experimental psychology, which meant I trained rats, which is not, that qualified me for law. But there is sometimes, there's this sort of meld thing that goes on between actors and their characters that they just can't separate themselves after, which is always like really, really interesting to find out about.
Yeah, I'm always, when someone plays like a really dark or troubled role, I'm always curious, like, how long did that sit with you? Like, how did you deal with going to that place? Right?
Oh, yes. Here's something else to because they're all, no other journalists are going to be watching this, right? So I'm giving these tips to you, and then okay, because journalists don't read other journalists' stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's this thing, and this was on this Hitler Rise of Evil with Robert Carlyle. He had to find a way into playing Hitler, and he couldn't get in through the hatred and everything, because that's pretty toxic for an actor.
Yeah.
So he got in through the arrogance of that. So you find out how they found their way in. But the other thing is this: Robert Carlyle, if you ever look at him, especially in profile, he leads with his forehead. Okay, that's how he is. People have a way of, some people lead with their shoulders. Joaquin Phoenix is a shoulder guy, just everyone. Carlyle had to drop his center of gravity to his chest, and he had to bully his way in because the character, Hitler, basically was a house painter who reinvented himself as a leader. And so Carlyle had to change his posture in order to deliver this. Really subtle things, but when you're watching the film, watch the film, then go back and see if you can ever see them not doing an interview, but standing, like a red carpet interview.
Mm.
Red carpet interview, you get more of a full body thing, and or how they. But if you can see how they move, not when they're acting, but see if they had to shift where they were, where in their body they were delivering from, and it's so fascinating how that happens. Just to ask about, because the actors do physically change when they are on set. I had to work with. There was a movie again, 25 years ago. It was the first time that Philip Seymour Hoffman ever got a lead. It was a movie called Owning Mahoney, and he was a method actor, and you'd always tell the method actors because they just drive the hair people crazy because they're always playing with their hair. And so what my question here, I remember sitting in his trailer asking him, like, because Hoffman was famous for stealing movies. He would steal every scene he was in. So I said, well, how do you steal a movie when you're the lead in it? And he said it's all in the tiny little things. When someone else was delivering a line, he would do something very tiny that would pull focus on the camera. And he was doing that even when he was the lead. It's really cool. Acting, the whole thing with actors and directors is so amazing. It's still like magic to me.
Oh, because sometimes, right, you'll watch a film and the cast is incredible and the film is not, and you're like, these are great actors, so what happened here? And then you see them with another director and they're tremendous, and you're just like, oh, right, because the director was able to get these performances out of the actors, right? And so you can see some people know how to marshal, right, how to orchestrate what's going on set, and some people haven't found that yet.
It's true, but the other thing that you can get really brilliant performances and it can get lost in post-production is more editing. Is that you can make a shit movie good with good editing. You can make a brilliant movie good with bad editing. It's all in how that. The thing to look for is I don't tend to do, my specialty is independent Canadian film, which is redundant because all Canadian films are independent because they are not studio films. We don't have a studio in this country. So the thing is that if you get, and it was the Cronenberg model that started this way back, where Cronenberg was making a Canadian film, but he was putting American talent in it. And this is like back last century. And that was a completely new business model for doing film. But now it happens all the time. But the only way that you can attract big name talent to a little film, it's not the money, it's the script.
Yeah.
So if you see a little film with a big name in it, the script is initially good. And if the final product is good, it's because the script is good, the talent is good, and the direction is good, and the post-production, the editing is good.
Yeah.
But if you see a big name actor in a tiny little film, it's all about character and script. There was a film called The Swearing Jar, and we got that was done not that long ago, and we got Kathleen Turner. She liked it because of the script. And my God, I had to go on set and I had to interview Kathleen Turner. I really was actually terrified. But seriously, the voice alone for Kathleen Turner is just. I'd like to put this in a bottle and dab it behind my ears. But she was good. Some, you know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at everything you've worked on, like there is a film I just loved. I think I covered it when I was doing Fantasia, Come True, about the girl doing the dream.
Okay, that's
Oh,
Copper Heart Entertainment. That's Steve Hoban and Mark Smith. Mark Smith. I'd just like to go on the record that Mark Smith is my work husband. Copper Heart Entertainment. Yes, they did. They did Anthony's film, which was surreal. Anthony is glorious. Very, very unique human, like really unique human. But yeah, Come True was something, wasn't it?
Oh man, it was so good because it was just it was crazy interesting. It was different. And that I just love that when something like you know, because there's films that you watch and from the first minute you know what's going to happen, you know where it's going, and it's just like, oh, I've seen it so many times. But when you can watch something and you have no clue where it's going to go, that there is always something about that is so great. And
Well,
Come True is tremendous.
well, that was about night terrors, and night terrors are like that's not fiction. It's quite real. And I've never had that where you're awake and asleep at the same time and weird shit's going on. Yeah, no, he had that. And then he's got an encyclopedic knowledge of every scene in every film. He can commit all of that to memory, and he practically does a mathematical equation on how to elicit a certain emotion by putting certain scenes together. His brain. Did you talk to the director at all on that?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, well, if you ever get a chance, do it. Find out if this guy ever comes out with more movies. Hunt it down and talk to him. He's a gem.
Oh man, yeah. Sometimes it depends who's handling the film.
Yeah.
There's some people just will not give me access. It's kind of crazy.
I know.
And then I remember one time there was this one film and it was decent. And I remember talking to the publicist and I was like, yo, are they available for, and they're like, oh, they're not doing interviews for this one. And I went to a short film screening and I'm talking to this guy afterwards and being like, oh yeah, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, oh yeah, so we were working on this one film. I'm like, yo, was that film this? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I watched that film. That film was great. And he's just like, oh yeah, we had problems trying to promote it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I tried to get an interview, but you guys weren't doing interviews. He's like, yes, we were. What do you mean we weren't doing interviews? We wanted to talk to everyone, but we just couldn't find anyone to talk to. And it was just like, what?
All right. Look, way back when I was a journalist, they were filming American Psycho in Toronto.
Ooh.
And I wanted, and I was a journalist, and I wanted to do this interview. And I was not getting anywhere on it at all. And not only, they were being really secretive because, you know, of course, the real guy that this, there had been a serial killer in Toronto, and when he was arrested, on his bedside table was American Psycho.
Oh.
Okay. Anyway, when they were filming the movie, and the director was Mary Herron, a Canadian director who lived in New York. when they were filming it, they were so secretive about it that if you called the production office, the standard thing at a production office is that at the end of the day, they will have a recording about where they're shooting the next day and call times for the crew, just in case you didn't get your call sheet. This is before, okay. They weren't even giving out that. They were, this whole thing, it was a stealth production. And I couldn't even get my hands on a script, but I found someone. I knew someone who knew the publisher of the book, who had a copy of the script, and they loaned me a copy of the script so I could do this. I couldn't get on set when they were filming this, but when it was done, I went to the distributor and they said, no, Mary Herron isn't coming up to Toronto for doing this because she's 8 months pregnant and can't get on a plane. So I flew myself down to New York.
Nice.
Get the damn interview. And
tremendous.
And wrote it up for Take One magazine, back when we had Take One magazine. But yeah, you have to, there's ways of doing it. Being an investigative journalist helped. But you really, there's some, if you want, you really just have to ask around and find out who just get any contacts you can and really dig for interviews, because it's strange how, it's strange. If you ever need interviews, call me.
Okay, cool.
I'll see if I can help you.
Yeah, there was the, oh my God, what is it called? Oh, gosh.
I know this feeling.
There was a Western film with Peter Dinklage in it.
Okay.
Oh.
You want me to look it up?
My gosh.
You look it up.
Yeah, it came out last year. That's right. It's going to really
drive you nuts if you can't remember
it. I've just called up. Oh, The Thicket. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, The Thicket. And so I got the screener for it, but I wasn't, they weren't giving me access to anyone. So I put my review out, and this has happened a few times. Put the review out, and then the people behind the film contact me, and they're like, "Oh, really like the review." And so, Elliot Lester, who directed the film, he hit me up and was like, "Oh, thank you for ruining the film. I really liked it." So I was like, "Yo, do you want a conversation?" And he said yes, and I was just like, "Awesome!" And I had a great chat with him. I sent it to the PR company looking after the film. I'm like, "Yo, I actually talked to Elliot. Here's the interview." Because I'm just like, I do great interviews. Why you keep on fucking around? But still, that didn't change anything. It hasn't changed anything. I still struggle to get interviews out of them. Oh, we've lost audio.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay, good. The one thing that is consistent in Hollywood is that every single person that you see in Hollywood has been told, anyone that you see anywhere in the business that you are aware of, regardless of festival or what they're doing and all that, if you've seen their name, they have all been told no a million times, and they have not accepted it.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to actors and directors, because I deal with a lot of new directors and producers, the ones who accept no go home and you never hear from them again. The ones that you know of have all been told no, and they went, yeah, no, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep doing it. So yeah, you get told no a lot in this business. Just ignore it and keep going.
Oh, Yeah, because when I first started this, I was getting no all the time. But it's just like, at first I was like, okay. And so I just went to cinema, watched films, reviewed all of those. And then I got in with a couple of agencies and they were sending me stuff. And then the more I was doing it, the more people started to give me access to their films. And then I started to get some interviews. And it's just like the more I was doing it, the more I was able to get stuff. And a lot of times now, I just go directly to like the director or an actor and just hit them up on Instagram or something like that and say,
Yeah,
hey,
I
would
work.
you for a conversation?
Yeah, it often works.
Yeah, I'll send them some examples of interviews. Sometimes they've seen an interview I've done and they're like, yes, I'm down. So it's just like, yeah, that's the thing. You just have to keep on doing it. And I think I think people stop because they just want to get like famous, right? They want to go viral, they want to get famous. So it's not about doing it because they enjoy films or they enjoy conversation. You know what I mean? But I'm just like, I just find it really intriguing talking with people about their work and how it became and how they did it and how they found like a different way into something. So I just love that. So I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't like, I don't really care about all the other stuff. I just want to keep on, you know what I mean, talking with people and having interesting conversations.
Well,
That's
I
the
don't
big,
think you did the Rice Terraces documentary, didn't you?
yes.
Yeah, that's a perfect one. I mean, aside from the fact that, and okay, for the benefit of uh, your audience, the documentary that I'm talking about is The Treasure of the Rice Terraces, and it's about Apo Wang Oud, who is the she's 108 years old now.
Yeah, it's
The
crazy.
tattoo artist who was on the cover of Vogue Philippines. I could not believe that they put a woman at the time who was 106 on the cover of Vogue. I was so,
Mm,
but I mean, when you get documentaries like that, which is so expensive that, and
mm.
they flew me over there for that.
Oh, right.
They flew me to the Philippines for that. Although I did not go up into the mountains because it required um, this tattoo artist lives in a little town called Buscalan. And
Mm,
so the way to get to Buscalan is you fly to Manila and then you drive for 14 hours. And then you get out of your car and then you hike for 2 hours.
yeah.
And then you're at like 6,000 feet up. I mean, it's just insane. Um, and they went there. That's where she lives. They just had a screening there. They took the film back to Buscalan, Philippines, to show the whole village the film,
Oh, tremendous.
it was extremely well received.
Mm.
It's quite cool. But yeah, you were the perfect person to do an interview like that.
Yeah, I mean, Kent and
Jacob.
Jacob, yes, they were great. It was
Yeah.
great talking to those guys. And it was just so interesting, just because it's just like I kind of got what like Kent was talking about because it's about coming to Toronto and then what I mean, being kind of like the odd one out. And it's just like I can completely get that. Right. So it's just, so it was like being able to talk to him about that experience and then discovering this thing, right? And then, diving into that. And so it was just so intriguing. you know. And then it's just like these, you've got this woman who's like crazy old, but not acting like she's crazy old. And how she had one apprentice and now she's got a ton, and you know, just growing this thing from
Right.
nearly being extinct to now just flourishing. Like, it's so interesting, you know.
Conceptually, that one was, I mean, right off the bat to me was fascinating, because when you've got a woman who's 100, I mean, at the time she was 106,
Mm.
and her father taught her to tattoo when she was 10. That's a century ago. Conceptually, this is bizarre. At a time when no women were taught, no women weren't doing tattoos.
Mm.
And so she's been doing this the whole time. There is so much to work with. And the
Yeah.
struggle on that film was, Kent's story was important, very important. I mean, it was sort of the genesis of the whole thing.
Mm.
And to bring her in and balance her story, which is in and of itself, you know, just huge.
Yeah.
And to balance her story with Kent's story was the challenge on that. But I think they did it beautifully,
Mm.
because they do tie together. And it took a while, because you don't want to reduce Apa Wang Oud's story down to nothing.
Mm.
And what he did in the village, it's taught all the women. And you know, when you go, I'm told that when you go to the village, all you can hear is tap, because the tattooing they're doing is sort of stick and thorn, right? And that's their tattooing, and you can hear this tapping going on the whole way. And the funniest thing was, I flew Manila. We shot Manila, and then we shot we flew to the island where the director Kent was born, Boracay. And then from there, I flew to Indonesia, because I was diving at that point. And it turned out that the dive master in Nusa Penida in Indonesia, off the coast of Bali, I was telling him what I was doing. The dive shop is called DPM, which is the abbreviation for De Puta Madre, which is a great name for a dive shop. David, the dive master, when I was telling him the story, pulled his T-shirt up and he showed me he had actually gone to Buscalan and he had Apo do one of his tattoos.
Oh,
It was
man.
so cool. It was so insanely cool.
Oh, that's crazy.
It is crazy. But
Mm.
you know, it's like what you said earlier, which is just go for it. Just
Yeah.
say yes, do everything.
Exactly. Damn. Oh, that's cool. How was the dive out there?
The dive?
Diving
Diving in
Mm.
where?
in Indonesia.
In Indonesia, it was breathtaking. It's the best diving in the world, and it's 28 °C water, so you
Ooh.
don't need a wetsuit. Wetsuits are you know what wetsuits are like? Pulling on really thick pantyhose. It's just
Oh,
but I mean, they do work. But in 28 degree water, you don't need that. You just need a
mm.
water. And the diving is it's pretty. There's everything. And a week after, because I was there for like 3 months last year, well, earlier this year. Yes, often when I was emailing you and setting up interviews, I was doing it from Indonesia, which allows me to be a digital nomad. I could be a publicist and dive. A week after I left, I had a hotel that was right on the beach, and you could dive right from there. But
Nice.
a week after I left, a great white swam by.
Oh.
The last great white they had there was 4 years ago. And the one thing about a great white is, you know, when there's a great white in the water, because everyone's getting out of the water and into the boat really fast. But this great white showed up. And if you can see the footage. There was a diver, he had a camera, he got footage. And if you put in a Google search for it, you put in Nusa, N-U-S-A, Penida, P-E-N-I-D-A, great white, you will get the footage, because it went absolutely viral. And the shark's swimming. He's swimming this way, right? And then he does this turn, and you get to see the smile.
Ooh.
And he looked at the diver and thought, "Yeah, no," and just kept going. Yeah, and that's what I'm going back to. It's the smile, for God's sakes,
Ooh.
on a great way. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm not saying in that water.
well, so yeah, it's fun stuff like that. Assuming I can get the vaccine for dengue fever, I'm going.
Oh man, like I really enjoy surfing,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of like, because I've only really surfed in Wales and Cornwall here,
Right.
but because it's just like I I can't really see the waves, so I have to someone tell me it's coming so I can get ready to grab it, because I just can't see it until it's basically on top of me. So I'm just like, if I was in the water and a shark's there, I ain't gonna see it until it's basically got me in its mouth. I'm just like, yeah, that could be a problem.
Okay. You've got to get those prescription lenses, even for surfing. It will make a difference.
Oh.
Trust me.
Oh no, but the problem is my glasses don't help me, like they don't make things bigger. They make things slightly smaller so it's in focus.
Yeah.
So that's the only, I'm wearing them for focus, really, not to, just can't, if, like, there's sometimes people, I'll walk past someone and then I'll see them later and they'll be like, why the fuck did you ignore me? I'm like, where were you? And they're like, I literally walked past you. I'm like, I didn't see you, man. Like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? So it's just, when I go to the cinema, I have to sit in the front row to be able to see. Like, I went to see the new Knives Out,
Yeah.
and I wasn't able to get a seat in the front, so I had to sit like in, I think I was in like row F or something like that. But the problem was there was a lot of visual stuff in the film.
Yeah.
Like there'd be some that no one's talking, and then I just hear everyone around me like laughing or going, and I'm just like, what's happening? Because there's so much visual stuff that I just didn't see any of it. And
Yeah.
I had no clue what actually happened in the film. So I have to wait until it comes on Netflix so I can actually see it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it can be very challenging.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm finding, the thing that it drives me nuts is sound. Sound is so muddy.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
thing that I found, even on set when they're filming, is that the people tend to they do deliver their lines very quietly, very 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 quietly. It's like, really, just talk seriously, just have a normal conversation, normal tone of voice, and please just do that. But no, no, it's the quiet delivery. It's a big thing.
Like one thing that I always find frustrating as well is when they put like the musical bed underneath people talking, and sometimes the music drowns out some of the dialogue, and it's just like, get rid of the music.
No, it's true. And the other thing that I read that is that having subtitles for movies in English, and the subtitles are English, is it's more common than you might imagine. It's being done a lot.
Mm,
You can't figure out what half the actors are saying.
yeah. The problem with subtitles, though, they don't often put a solid background behind them. So you have white text, and then if someone's wearing white clothes or it's a light background, you just lose the text.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's infuriating.
The other thing that happened was that there was one particular film festival I was at, and it was new for them to be adding subtitles. And whoever was doing their subtitles had subtitled a comedy, and they ran the subtitles a nanosecond
Oh,
off,
yeah.
and they lost every single joke, because the whole thing
Mhm.
about comedy is timing.
Yep.
And because this was off, in fact, the subtitles were running a nanosecond too soon. So it was killing every joke.
Mm,
And stuff that was a guaranteed laugh, the audience was sitting there and not laughing because they had already heard the punchline
yeah.
before it should be delivered. It is treacherous, that all,
Mm,
but
yeah. You either get it too early or too late.
yeah. And
That's
it,
This
it
happens all
pulls
the time.
focus, doesn't it?
Mm,
Subtitles pull focus from, you're not watching the performance anymore.
yeah.
You're reading the subtitles.
That is, yeah, always an issue. Another thing I really hate is when the film finishes, you then get the text on screen going, and afterwards they did this and boom, 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 and boom, 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 and the screen's that like that, but the text is like a small little square in the middle,
Yeah.
and it's just like, use all the space firstly, or just get someone to narrate it. You know what I mean? Get someone to narrate the text, or at least put it on the website so someone can go and go, oh, that's what it was saying.
Yeah.
But it's just like, sometimes I'm after a film, I try and find someone and be like, yo, excuse me, I couldn't see what it said. Could you, what was the text afterwards? And some people tell you, and other people are like, oh, shut up, and walk off. And it's just like, Argh. But it's just, those things are just like, Argh, pet peeves that just are very irritating.
It is. I'm going to have to wrap this up because I have another meeting coming up.
No problem. But this, man, firstly, this has been great. And I really appreciate you giving the time, because, you know what I mean? I just figured, because we're hitting 400, you know what I mean? Let me get on people that have really helped contribute to making this what it is. So I hit you up, I hit AJ up, you know what I mean? Because you guys just always give me so many interesting things. And I know that if a film's coming from you guys, it's going to be a good film. Because there's some people, they send me stuff and it's terrible. And I'm just like, how do you push this? Because it's so bad. You know what I mean? But it's like, I know there's a level of quality when I see your name and I see AJ's name. You know what I mean?
Well, congratulations on your 400th uh, episode of your podcast. It's a very, very good podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for your time. And
You're welcome.
this has been, it's just been fascinating hearing like all of this different stuff, because you know what I mean? You don't always get that insight. So yeah, this has been great.
And we'll have lunch in January.
Yes, it's in the calendar.
Excellent. Okay.
Awesome, Cynthia. Thank you for your time. Oh, how can people get hold of you if they need a publicist?
Oh, email's always the best. You have my email. Do you want to put that at the bottom or something?
Okay, yeah, I will
Cynthia
put
at,
that.
Cynthia at roundstonepr.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay, people, the information will be on the webpage for this episode, so make sure you check it out. Because if you have a film, TV show, or a documentary, you could have no one better than Cynthia Amsden to be looking after you. So, yeah, Cynthia,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to our continued work together.
Absolutely. Cool. Have a
Awesome.
good day.
You too. Take care.